Story 1. Oyster stew casserole made every Thanksgiving by my grandmother. The family rule was that everyone had to take one bite of everything before getting seconds, and everyone would scrape a tiny bit of the saltine cracker topping to meet the requirement, even the adults. After Grandpa passed away, my aunt sat down with Grandma and told her she didn't have to make that casserole anymore. Apparently, it was Grandpa's favorite dish. Grandma thankfully didn't make more of it. Story 2. My grandma's lumpy mashed potatoes. The potatoes were never boiled fully, and the lumps were always hard. I never had a turkey there that wasn't like chewing jerky either. The days of her hosting family dinners are long gone, but I actually miss them a lot, lumps and all. Story 3. Once upon a time, when I had grown up and left home, I went to my grandparents for lunch in the summer with my father and uncle. We had tuna sandwiches. My grandmother, who was a great cook and whom I loved dearly, made terrible tuna sandwiches every time. I don't think she drained the water out of the tuna can, so the whole sandwich was a wet, sloppy mess. As we were cleaning up after lunch, I timidly mentioned to my father, "I don't really like Grandma's tuna sandwiches." This was the first time I had ever expressed disappointment with her cooking, so I was very shy about it. Without missing a beat, my father replied, "None of us do, but we love her, so we eat it." Story 4. Mother-in-law's stuffing at Thanksgiving is not stuffing. It is mashed potatoes. The breadcrumbs are overly soggy, and then she adds mashed potatoes, carrots, raisins, and usually a new mystery ingredient. She mixes it together with very little seasoning. It is weird, bland, and not much different from the real mashed potatoes that are also on the table. Story 5. My husband's dear old sweet 94-year-old grandmother used to insist on boiled onions at Christmas dinner. Whole Spanish onions boiled until clear. Not caramelized. Not even sliced. Just 4 whole transparent onions in a casserole dish. Every year the family would pass the dish around as though we were going to take some. It took me 5 years of eating a hunk of onion before I realized that no one else was taking them. Here I was, a dutiful new girlfriend trying to be polite, desperately trying to figure out what to do with them. Eat a slice on top of a bite of turkey? On their own as a palate cleanser? Mix it into the stuffing? The rest of the in-laws were just passing the dish while Granny and I were eating. She is gone now, and no one tries to make them in her honor. Story 6. Steak my in-laws make in the oven. Take a perfectly good ribeye and they cook it until it is way past well done, then slather it in A1 sauce. Very sad. Story 7. It was a dish and it was good, too good. A distant aunt's 5-bean spicy bacon salad at Thanksgiving, among a group of big eaters. We came in with large appetites, and she had made enough to feed a battalion. After a couple of hours, the chemical warfare fallout was so great that Grandma lost all composure and demanded we all leave her house. We had to sit on the porch. Adults and kids alike sat outside, passing gas unabashedly while giggling at each other. Grandpa later said Grandma opened every window and took away his pipe before he blew us all to hell. She also forbade my aunt from ever making it again. Story 8. Anything that my brother makes. He is convinced he is a great cook and makes a big deal of cooking for people. He cooks like a university student. Fat, carbohydrates, meat, no vegetables. And it is not even good. But because he is a very moody individual, it is easier to eat and praise than anything else. I only see him once a year, so it is manageable. Story 9. My family makes chicken salad, which is chicken, mayonnaise, and whatever is left in the cupboard. Literally, raisins, walnuts, Captain Crunch, 10-year-old granola, and so on. It is quite unpleasant, but we all have to sit around complimenting how good it is. Story 10. I present to you my grandmother's eldritch delight, the pear salad. Lay 1 leaf of lettuce on a small plate, preferably wilted. On top, place 1/2 of a canned pear. Fill the divot with pure, unadulterated mayonnaise. Top with shredded cheddar. Serve at room temperature. Enjoy. You want to know the worst part? It's actually good, really good. It's like the ancient ones kissed every little bite. The ancient ones call. I must have one. Story 11. My mother-in-law makes corned beef and cabbage for Thanksgiving every single year and gets upset when my husband and I don't want to go to her house for this holiday. All because my sister-in-law, the favorite, doesn't like turkey. So on Turkey Day, my poultry-loving husband can't go to his mom's and have turkey, and we're not allowed to bring our own. I've offered to smoke a bird for them, but still, we usually go to one of my parents. She did make plastic packaged turkey one year, but it tasted plasticky, and my husband was also upset about it. She also forgets that my brother-in-law, who is the husband of my sister-in-law, is allergic to many things and refuses to make even a single dish he can have, even though he provides an amazing lifestyle for her. Story 12. My mother-in-law makes meals that are almost good, but they never quite hit the mark because she does not use salt. She does not use any seasoning unless it is living herbs. She is old school crunchy, so everything she makes is like 1990s Whole Foods style low fat, half-cooked salad. She uses solid ingredients, but avoids anything she thinks is unhealthy. No sugar, no salt, nothing with preservatives or dyes. While those are healthy choices, it is not the best approach when making a birthday cake for an 8-year-old grandson. If she could let go of whatever diet trend she follows and add some salt to her food sometimes, people would probably think she is a good cook. Story 13. My aunt makes boiled onions. It is exactly as it sounds. Onions boiled in water. Then they eat them. Story 14. We have a rule. Do not eat anything grandma made. It has probably been expired for years, and if it contains dairy, it has been frozen and thawed several times. Story 15. My husband's aunt makes a terrible pumpkin pie for Thanksgiving. The pumpkin is sliced like an apple, and there is no cinnamon or other spices. It also looks deceptively like apple pie and is a very disappointing dessert. Story 16. Most of my family's go-to dishes are pretty good, but there is one that I used to dread every time we had cold plates for Boxing Day or Easter, and that was my Aunt Kim's corn and pineapple salad. It was canned corn, canned pineapple bits, sometimes diced raw onion and shredded carrot, a lot of Miracle Whip or cheap store brand equivalent, and a thick layer of powdered paprika on top. Story 17. My brother's cheesecake. He manages to make it curdle, turning it into cottage cheese. The texture is memorable. Story 18. My aunt's grilled cheese. How do you mess up a grilled cheese? You use cheeses that you only got because they were expensive or sounded fancy. Story 19. My sister-in-law's Thanksgiving dinner is exactly the same as her Christmas menu. She uses no seasoning, not even salt and pepper. Then she serves canned gravy and melts Velveeta on the overcooked vegetables, which evidently stand in for seasoning. My son only eats the Pillsbury rolls, which was not so bad when he was little but is really uncomfortable now that he is a grown man. Story 20. Aunt Betty's mystery casserole that tastes like regret in a dish. Story 21. Overcooked crockpot roast and gravy from a jar that smells like dog food. Story 22. My poor grandmother tries so hard, but she is just not great in the kitchen. She likes to make this French toast bake that ends up soggy on the bottom with raw eggs. If she wanted to cook for Christmas brunch, there had to be a backup plan because even if it was all edible, she never made enough. It clicked one year when she said if she didn't have an ingredient or know what something was, she would just skip it. Story 23. Almost anything my mother-in-law makes. I wouldn't say her food is horrible. It's just bland and sad. Everything is under-seasoned meat smothered in some kind of bland sauce over rice or mashed potatoes. Story 24. It's like a vegetarian lasagna that my mom makes, replacing the traditional lasagna ingredients. It's basically just yellow plantains and lasagna noodles. If you ever want to feel your soul wail, eat it. Story 25. My mom makes macaroni and cheese with tomatoes. Now you may be picturing creamy cheese and pasta with some ripe, delicious tomatoes to add texture. This is not that. She uses overcooked elbow macaroni, cheddar cheese, and canned peeled tomatoes. It is bland and unpleasant, and I would not touch it with a long pole. Story 26. Grandma's stuffing, over-seasoned with sage to the point that I dislike the flavor of sage. Story 27. My mother-in-law would make mashed potatoes by boiling potatoes, then pouring out most but not all of the water and then mashing. No butter, cream, salt, or pepper, just potato and water. Story 28. I feel very privileged to have come from a very Cajun family where everyone is a good cook. Story 29. My wife had an aunt who boiled her ham, Not ham and cabbage, just the ham in water sliced. Story 30. Jell-O is served at every meal in multiple kinds. Regular, some with cream, some with fruit, and others with vegetables because it is healthy. It is not just that they serve it with the meal, which is absurd since it is obviously a dessert, but if half of your plate is not Jell-O, they try to shame you. Yes, Loretta. Sorry, I didn't load my 2-year-old's plate with sugar water-soaked vegetables. I guess she is just going to grow up deprived. Story 31. Grandma's chicken parmesan. Somehow raw and burned at the same time, breading slides right off, cheese is basically rubber, and the sauce is mostly water. I miss it. Story 32. My mother married into a British family, and for every holiday, she would make aspic. Tastes like it sounds. Story 33. If you, like me, come from the former Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, you might be aware of the abomination that is kolodets, also known as aspic or meat jelly. It is vile, and I hope nobody reading this who is unfamiliar with it ever has the misfortune of having to consume it. Story 34. My aunt's apple pie. When I was a child, it was always the best. Then, as we all grew older, she switched to Splenda or some diet sweetener, and it has been awful ever since. She makes it every year for her favorite niece, and I just smile, say thank you, and eat the smallest piece. Story 35. Pretzel salad. I think it might be a Mormon thing. Pretzels, cream cheese, strawberry gelatin, whipped cream. I get the side-eye every holiday, and you don't want the pretzel salad? It's my favorite. Story 36. My Aunt Mary makes a fantastic taco salad. At my grandmother's funeral, Mary's famous taco salad had a hair in it. Actually, it had more than a few squirrely-whirly hairs. We love her and assume it happened because of a cooking mishap with a raccoon. It doesn't matter how it happened. Now, no one can eat Aunt Mary's taco salad. Story 37. One year, we did Passover at a random family friend's house. She served matzo ball soup, and I dug in only to find it was chicken broth. She saw the blank looks all around and announced she did not cook with salt at all. Yikes. Story 38. No, my family is unhygienic. I do not participate in that since I found a dirty bandage in Nana's blueberry pie 25 years ago. That is my mom's side. My dad's side all eat dip over the communal bowl to catch what falls out of their mouth. I am a cycle breaker. Story 39. Ham slices in a crock pot with some type of meat broth and Mountain Dew. Aunt makes it for every holiday. Story 40. Not so much a family get-together, but my grandmother used to force-feed me canned asparagus with cheese on toast. To this day, I cannot taste asparagus without dry heaving. Story 41. My great-grandmother, before she got too old, used to make tamales. They were not horrible because they tasted bad, but because they were incredible and you would sit there and eat all you could, and then go home and have the worst diarrhea of your life. Story 42. If I hear one more time that the secret ingredient in those meatballs is grape jelly, I am just going to lose it. Story 43. My aunt made a brisket for our last family get-together, and that will be her last time. She quietly got roasted by a few family members. My family has a few chefs and many really good cooks. I am not one of them, so I do not comment on anyone's cooking. If it is not good, I just never eat it again, but I personally do not make negative comments about it to the person. Hopefully, she will practice and get better. Story 44. Green salad, but the one made with gelatin and marshmallows. If you know, you know. Story 45. Before my uncle passed away, he made his version of rice pilaf. When I was younger, it didn't taste too bad. As I got older, it was just a flavorless combination of chicken breasts, button mushrooms, thin pasta, slivered almonds, and flavorless rice. Nothing but bland in a pan. It needed salt, butter, and chicken broth would have also helped. It had potential. Story 46. After reading these comments, I am grateful for my family's cooking. It is not what I typically eat. It is a lot of processed and unhealthy food, but it reminds me of home, and I enjoy it when I go back. Story 47. Not anymore, because my grandmother passed away 12 years ago. She and my grandfather lived several hours away. Whenever we went to see them, she always served us sloppy joe and cantaloupe. To this day, I cannot stand cantaloupe. Story 48. My family has a tradition of going to my grandmother's house on Christmas Eve to open presents. For dinner, my grandmother always makes potato soup. No turkey, no ham, just soup. It is the blandest soup ever. She uses some special milk that is easy on the stomach because she has many digestive issues. No salt or pepper, just milk and potatoes. You have to season it yourself. I used to dislike that soup and would eat appetizers like Christmas cookies, cheese, and crackers instead. Now, I am beginning to inherit the family digestive issues, and suddenly, this soup is like the elixir of the gods whenever I have a bout of irritable bowel syndrome. Story 49. Does anyone else's family have a tradition of eating bean soup and noodle soup for Christmas Eve dinner? Family heritage is Polish, German, Croatian, and Slavic. Great-grandparents immigrated from Central and Eastern Europe to the Pittsburgh area about 100 years ago. It's been an age-old family tradition to eat bean soup and noodle soup for Christmas Eve dinner. Noodle soup is flat noodles in a roux-type thick base. Bean soup is beans, possibly kidney beans, in a very plain thick base. Served side by side in the same bowl, they are thick enough that they don't mix together unless you choose to mix them. As kids, we thought it was gross and disgusting, but it is a very old and time-honored family tradition. Our family lore is that Christmas Eve used to be a Catholic fast day, meaning no meat, chicken, pork, or ham. Our coal miner and mill worker great-grandparents were too poor to afford anything other than this: noodles, beans, flour, butter, salt, and pepper. We always thought it was peculiar to our family, but as an adult now, I wonder if it comes from a wider tradition somewhere that has been lost over time. Story 50. My grandmother heard that my sister and I like pesto, so she made us pesto one time for a big family dinner. A sprig of basil, slivered almonds, and lemon juice. No garlic, no parmesan, no olive oil, barely any basil. Story 51. My sister-in-law makes stuffing every Thanksgiving. It is wet and mushy with raisins in it. Story 52. My mom makes a meal called shit on shingles. It is toast topped with white gravy and mystery deli meat, possibly roast beef. My siblings and I cringe when we think of eating it. We dreaded it. Story 53. My white Southern grandmother used spaghetti sauce as an excuse to use up items in the fridge as though it were a hash. So spaghetti with onions, carrots, peppers, squash, hard-boiled egg, and cubes of yesterday's ham, all in jarred tomato sauce over spaghetti. Story 54. I was married to a woman for a while. Her grandmother cooked asparagus until it was limp. I divorced her because of that. Story 55. A British grandmother swore by her pumpkin pie. Her bland, flavorless pumpkin pie. I know the British dislike strong flavors, but don't mess with my pumpkin pie. Story 56. My grandmother loves making chicken tikka masala. The problem is that she believes chicken tikka masala is chicken and rice stewed in ketchup and hot sauce and covered in cilantro. Story 57. Allow me to preface this by saying my mom is, in all regards, an incredible cook. She is so good that one of my aunts hates coming to her house for dinner because her husband likes my mom's cooking better than her own, and it upsets her. That good of a cook. And yet, every single year, for Thanksgiving and Christmas, she makes sausage meat casserole. In every other context, her casseroles are predictably delicious and filled with yummy ingredients. But sausage casserole, all her prior knowledge of the term casserole seems to just fall out of her brain when she makes this. It's just sausage meat. That's it. A big, square, bland, greasy, oily, overcooked, and yet somehow also undercooked sausage meat. I don't mean the kind of sausage meat that's supposed to be solitary. I mean the kind you're meant to make gravy with or put in a recipe as one of many components. And that's it. It's just a brick of squishy meat. Sometimes there is inexplicably black pepper sprinkled on top, but only sometimes. I don't know or understand why she does this. No one likes it. No one eats it. She doesn't eat it. It goes in the fridge fully intact in the same dish it was cooked in, covered in foil. I don't know or want to know what happens to it after that. Sometimes she asks people to take some home. I presume it goes in the trash or in a taste-blind dog's food bowl. She must know this is what happens. I know she knows. But every year, every single year, there it is on the table, in its little square white and blue cookware covered by the matching glass lid, with a sad, lonely, disappointed, and untouched serving spoon beside it. Why, Mom? Why do you do this? Stopping is always an option. Story 58. I hate to say it, but most of my family's cooking is terrible. Everyone is allergic to every seasoning, apparently. There is way too much mayonnaise-based food with excessive mayonnaise added. And everything is sweet. Pickles? Sweet. Ham? Sweet. Sweet potatoes? Not sweet enough, they have to drown them in sugar. Sandwich buns? Sweet like cake. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love a certain amount of sweetness in my food now and then, but why does every single thing always have to be sweet? Also, no fresh fruit or vegetables. They live in farm country and are literally surrounded by fresh produce, but you will never see it in the kitchen or on a plate. Story 59. My grandmother makes boiled potatoes at family gatherings. No salt, no seasoning, and still in starchy water in a pot on the table. They are completely flavorless and mushy. Story 60. Caldo. I have had it in restaurants, and it is not an overpowering flavor, but it has a good flavor balance. However, my mom used no spices, so it was just bland boiled chicken and vegetables. Story 61. Usually my dad makes different experiments on each occasion, but for a while he got stuck on brie cheese baked in brandy and nuts to the point where just thinking about it makes my stomach churn. It is just so sweet and so overwhelmingly greasy. Story 62. Thankfully, these are past atrocities from former family relations that I no longer have to suffer. There was normal turkey-flavored breadcrumb stuffing with chopped boiled eggs mixed in. What fresh hell is this? Ex-stepsister. Weird spätzle-like noodles mixed with spaghetti sauce and baked into a casserole with a large amount of bacon on top. It was extremely greasy. Salty baked pasta with a bitter burnt bacon finish. Same ex-stepsister as above. Overcooked spaghetti mixed with eggs and topped with spaghetti sauce, then baked. Ex-husband. Plain, bland cooked ground beef boiled in water with rice-a-roni. Same ex-husband. Story 63. My grandfather also used to try hiding deer meat in meat pies and stuffing. We asked him not to, but he did it every time. I guess he was happy to have it all to himself. Story 64. Jew here. Kugel is an egg, noodle, sour cream, and cottage cheese casserole. Everyone raves about it, but I have always found it unappealing. Crunchy dry noodles are unpleasant. Story 65. We went to father-in-law's house for Christmas one year. They made something they called lasagna. I don't even know how they could mess it up so much. Not only was there no ricotta layer, the sauce was absolutely horrid. My husband and I choked it down. Our kids were not so polite. Let's just say we've had pizza ordered every year since. We also went to their house more than one year. I usually host, but life was busy that year, so they said they would. We just had to bring ourselves. Everything was okay. Just not my traditional meal, and I was a bit disappointed. But they had a green bean casserole. I'd never had it before and was polite and took a small amount. I don't know how you can mess it up. I know what goes in it. It was so bad I literally had to run to the bathroom and vomit. Story 66. Scallop potatoes are potatoes that have been boiled, sliced, then layered in a pan with chunks of processed cheese and baked until the cheese melts. They were only made for holidays as a special treat. I disliked the artificial American cheese flavor as a child. We alternated between my mother's and father's family for holidays, and I did not enjoy the years spent with my father's side. They also served green beans or broccoli with processed cheese. I would just eat the meat and pretend not to be hungry until we returned home 2 days later. Story 67. In hindsight, this started when Nan was starting to lose her marbles. She would put very odd things in jelly based solely on their color. Peas in lime jelly, carrots in orange jelly, and so on. Luckily, the cousins would dare each other to eat it, so Nan's feelings were never hurt by it being left behind. Story 68. When I lived with my grandparents, my grandmother would make a dish that could only be described as the pork thing. She mixed a terrible sauce made from barbecue sauce, tomato sauce, sugar, and other ingredients into a brown dish. Then she added a kilogram of pork chops, covered it with a lid, and cooked it in the oven for what felt like hours. The house smelled strongly of it. None of us liked it, It was cloying and made us all gag except for my grandmother. Sometimes I would come home from school and smell it cooking from outside the house. Sometimes my grandfather and I would sneak out and have dinner at the pub. One year my grandfather accidentally dropped the dish when taking it out of the oven. Story 69. Ribbon salad consists of 3 flavors of gelatin layered with mayonnaise, sometimes mixed with small fruit pieces. Fortunately, my mother switched it to Cool Whip some years ago, and the rest of the family followed suit. Story 70. When I was a kid, it was frittata di spaghetti. It did not matter who made it. I just could not stand the smell, the look, the texture, or the taste. I still do not eat it now, but if I had to, I would. Story 71. My stepmom grills $30 steak to charcoal death and it tastes like ash. She does it to get rid of bacteria. Not even barbecue sauce can save it. Story 72. Microwaved broccoli. Literally just microwaved broccoli that is stringy and brown. No seasoning. Served in the plastic container it was microwaved in. Broccoli is very easy to cook and make delicious. Story 73. When I was a kid, I hated my aunt's stuffing that went in the turkey. She made the kind mixed with long-grain wild rice, and the turkey was always done an hour or so early, so the rice was fully cooked. This resulted in stuffing with partially uncooked rice crunches that made it terrible. As I got older, it was the same aunt's gelatin shots. I hate very few foods, but my number one is gelatin. She added extra alcohol, so the gelatin never quite solidified as it was supposed to. To make it worse, she always used flavored liquor, resulting in 2 competing flavors while also creating what my sister called thick shots. Story 74. It is always that unpleasant pineapple, marshmallow, canned fruit casserole that makes me gag just looking at it from across the table. Story 75. Fruit salad mixed with Miracle Whip salad cream and mini marshmallows. Sorry, Aunt Jean, but it is utterly revolting. Every year, people in the family try to think of a tactful way to suggest you do not make it. Story 76. My aunt used to overcook everything until it was inedible. The worst was probably spaghetti. She would boil the pasta until it was like glue, then take a jar of marinara sauce, pour it out, and add ketchup for some horrible reason. She claimed that was how her mom made it. She was not a good cook at all. Story 77. Every time my mother and grandmother made salad for Thanksgiving and other gatherings, they would drown the salad in mayonnaise. When I was about 20, I asked them if they could not do that or at least put some aside without the mayonnaise. They got upset and said, "Everybody else likes it this way, and I am not making an exception for one person." Story 78. Beef on Kimmelweck, except it is just roast beef deli meat warmed in au jus. Story 79. All dishes are taste tested several times using the same spoon or finger, which is unhygienic. Dishes also contain a noticeable amount of dog hair and have the strong aroma of cigarettes. Story 80. For Thanksgiving, my mother-in-law puts turkey in the slow cooker for hours the night before, and then on the day of, she puts the whole thing in the microwave just to be sure. I imagine that meant just to be sure there was no moisture left. Story 81. Also, I just asked my boyfriend about his family, and he said anything his mother makes. She is Korean and cooks authentic Korean dishes that she grew up with, which I have never had. According to my boyfriend, they are very bad, so much so that he barely likes Korean food now, and this is what he grew up with. I have tried to convince him to go to an authentic Korean restaurant so I can try the food, but he always says no. Story 82. Pretty much everything my mother-in-law makes. I love her to death, but she is not a good cook. Most everything comes in a package. I wish she used a package for gravy. It is usually an oily flour broth. The hardest part is that she is always licking her fingers and tasting while she is cooking. Story 83. When I was a child, my aunt brought gefilte fish over for Christmas dinner. It was in a jar of congealed jelly. It makes me want to gag thinking about it. Story 84. Coke salad is a mixture of cherry gelatin, Coca-Cola, cottage cheese, and frozen cherries combined and served together. The reddish-brown color from the cherry gelatin mixed with Coca-Cola, along with the bits of cottage cheese, gives it an appearance similar to vomit. Story 85. My sister thinks she is a good baker and insists on baking a cake for special occasions. It is a brick every single time. Then my other sister has the audacity to say, "Oh, it is so good. Girl, you saw how much effort she had to do to cut through the cake. It is not good. Stop lying." Story 86. My dad was the cook and he was not bad. But he was one of those people who loved the taste of carbon. Blackened breads, cookies with burnt bottoms, waffles, and pancakes with bitter dark crust. If you mentioned it, he would just blink. Story 87. Gray vegetables. Every Christmas, my grandma would boil carrots, broccoli, and green beans for so long that they all turned the same gray color in a mush. Story 88. My dad often makes pasta with meat, onions, and sometimes other ingredients. For example, Dollar General brand box macaroni and cheese with large chunks of raw onion added at the end, along with canned chicken. He does not season anything while cooking but adds salt and pepper to his plate. Story 89. My dad's homemade sloppy joes. He invented his own recipe. It is hamburger meat cooked in a whole bottle of ketchup with salt and pepper, then dumped onto bread. I cannot explain just how salty that is. Sometimes just look up the sodium content in ketchup. If you complained that he needs something besides ketchup only, he might be nice enough to let you have some raw onion in it. Story 90. I was adopted as an infant into an extended family with a genetic history of not having any taste buds. My dad really could not taste very much. His mom basically just boiled everything and never used any sort of seasoning. My mom's side was a little better, but they all had a nervous breakdown if anything was spicy, meaning properly seasoned and flavored. My mom was a conscientious cook and enjoyed preparing large meals, but her sense of taste was dulled. She would mix all the food on her plate when eating, such as red beets, applesauce, and pork, before putting it in her mouth. The taste should have made her gag, but she thought nothing of it. Some things she still managed to get right, such as soups and anything baked. Other things were okay because they are hard to get wrong. But her chicken was always undercooked. She used half a bottle of Maggi on steak when just a few drops were needed, and her red cabbage was gag-inducing. I was considered finicky for not enthusiastically shoveling it down my throat. Then I moved to Japan and discovered for the first time in my life what food is supposed to taste like. Story 91. Reading these comments, I'm very glad to be a black person from the South. I have never had bad food made by family. Story 92. The only thing I like about Thanksgiving dinner is green bean casserole, and only for the crunchy onions. I dislike turkey the most. Thanksgiving is the only holiday my family celebrates, especially since my mother died a few years ago. I overpay to fly there, sleep on an air mattress, and try to be cheerful for my father's sake. Story 93. Sigh. My stepfather-in-law's pear and blue cheese bites. He is so proud of them and makes them for special occasions. Squares of toast, slices of pear, and melted blue cheese on top. I loathe blue cheese, but I love that man, so I have choked them down for him. Story 94. My Aunt Marge, bless her soul. Turkey dressing served with turkey neck sticking out like the Loch Ness Monster. Story 95. My great-aunt belonged to the never throw away anything school of cooking. Any leftovers, including half-eaten sandwiches, were all put into a pot. She then added seawater from her local beach to save the cost of salt. This mixture was boiled until everything became a thick liquid and served as soup. Leftover soup formed the basis of the next batch, and so on. Story 96. My cousin's taco salad. Lettuce, tomatoes, onions, shredded cheese, taco meat, jalapenos. So far, so good. Right? Doritos, super salty but okay. Then mixed with an entire bottle of Catalina dressing. Story 97. No, I do not have to eat everything offered. Story 98. Someone used to make a dry pork tenderloin at family gatherings. Story 99. I had a great aunt who made a dish called baked spaghetti. It included tomato sauce, spaghetti, and American cheese slices on top, then baked under the broiler until the cheese was black and crispy. She made sure everyone had some on their plate, and, if not, she would bring you some. She made this for every family gathering. New Year's, Easter, Thanksgiving, Christmas, card games, weddings, funerals, or if you mentioned you were stopping over. You could not see her without having some baked spaghetti. Story 100. My sister makes this green bean casserole. She uses onions and cream of mushroom soup. Not a little bit of onions, but a literal 1/3 of the pan is onions. I do not like onions and cannot stand them. I also refuse to eat mushrooms. She knows that I do not like onions and mushrooms. She still cooks this at every get-together and gets offended when I refuse to even look at it. I do not live near my family. It is over 2 hours to my dad's house and another hour to my mom and sister's house. Bringing food to family gatherings often is not practical. Warm food would get cold and some things would melt. So, for my sister, I am leading by example. Do not bring food to family gatherings. Story 101. My girlfriend's mom's shepherd pie. To be pedantic, it's made with beef, so it's a cottage pie, but I will let that slide. More importantly, it is sloppy Joe mix with undercooked green beans and mashed potatoes on the side. Nothing baked together. It does not help that she is the most stereotypical white person when it comes to spice. She literally thinks ketchup is spicy. Story 102. My mom has made these crock-pot spare ribs for years with a sauce that contains mustard and cherry jelly. Apparently, I am the weirdo because everyone else seems to love them. My brother, my dad, my husband, and the neighbors all love them. Story 103. It wasn't a gathering. I was just sleeping over. My grandmother once made macaroni and cheese with tuna, peas, corn, ketchup, mustard, and chili sauce. My grandfather and I both took a bite and spit it out. Later, we caught each other sneaking food at 1 a.m. when she was asleep. Story 104. My mother's potato salad. She makes a kilogram of it. It tastes like something from a nursing home, and she overcooks all the vegetables. Story 105. Had to. Ex-student in learning would make tuna mornay every time. Tuna pasta bake basically with all tinned ingredients and the gloopy cheese sauce. Story 106. Any of my aunt's cooking. At this point, I have stopped going to her house for family gatherings because on more than one occasion, I have gotten food poisoning from her cooking. Story 107. It's probably been said before, but the gefilte fish is my least favorite part of Passover. I don't think anyone makes it fresh. It comes in a jar that looks like cat food. Story 108. One Christmas. A particularly thrifty aunt was the hostess. We all ate traditional Christmas pudding with brandy butter and lashings of real custard. This year, the pudding was a trifle on the dry side, lacked flavor, and was just unpleasant. Mother was having none of it and went into the kitchen to have a look around. She emerged brandishing an empty pudding tin. It was so old there was no expiry date. However, the price tag was from a local supermarket that had closed down 8 years earlier. Story 109. Am I the only one whose parents never made them eat anything they did not want to? They would discuss with family members that everyone eats whatever they want and just let me and my brother be. My grandmother made a scene one time, and I sucked it up and ate some stew I knew I did not like by the smell. I proceeded to throw up right after. Nobody said anything ever after that. Story 110. Arroz con leche, as it was called in my world, is rice pudding. I recognize that my mom's rice pudding is amazing compared to every other rice pudding I've ever tried. The problem was that my mom thought I loved it because in the 1980s you ate what was served to you since there were starving children somewhere. In reality, I think rice pudding might be one of the most disgusting concoctions out there. I made it to my college years before I finally told my mom how much I hated rice pudding. She had confused me with my sister, who loved it. Story 111. Macaroni casserole with cubed spiced ham, canned corn, green beans, and cream of mushroom soup. First my mother, now deceased, made it. Now my sister serves it to us. Story 112. My mom made these horrible meatballs from scratch and usually burned most meat badly. The meatballs took the cake though malformed, slightly spherical globs of poorly seasoned hamburger that were charred to the point that only a tiny speck of edible meat remained in the center. At any rate, one day when I was 6, I had just learned that shooting stars were burned up bits of space debris. I still remember the spanking I got for comparing the meatballs to meteorites. Her gelatin salad was another disaster. Green gelatin with carrots, pineapple, raisins, and cottage cheese. Sometimes it didn't set correctly. Story 113. My nan's famous vinegar and salmon sandwich. If you ever wanted a sandwich that was 95% vinegar and 5% tinned salmon, then my nan, God rest her soul, had the meal for you. Story 114, whatever godforsaken recipe my aunt saw on Facebook. Spaghetti stew, cheeseburger salad, 7-layer hot dog hot dish, where 3 of the layers are mayonnaise. Pizza in a bag? There are some real sick people out there concocting these abominations. Story 115, my grandmother was normally a very good cook. However, she had some habits from mid-century rationing. The worst was a canned half pear sitting on a lettuce leaf with the center filled with Miracle Whip and shredded cheddar cheese. Story 116. This is a fun question. I do not care if you are a bot. Thank you for posting. Story 117. It is all pretty good. My family has given me some printed hints that I should bring the drinks or cups and plates, so I suspect it was mine. Story 118. There is a dish that I personally love, but everyone hates. It is spaghetti with brown sugar and white sugar in the sauce, cooked with raisins. The raisins plump up with the sauce and become delicious, juicy bursts of flavor. I come from an Italian family, and my dad says it is a Sicilian tradition. Story 119. I grew up in the South. All our food tastes good. You might not want to know the origins of it, but it is definitely worth eating. Story 120. I have avoidance/restrictive food intake disorder and food allergies, so I have a hard time eating food I did not make. However, in the case of bad food, it is expected that I will not eat any. In the past, though, it was my grandpa's pumpkin pie with the raw crust. Story 121. Nobody in my German family makes bad food or desserts. Everything is sublime. Story 122. My mother's roast beef. She overcooks it so much that not even gravy can save it. Story 123. Nobody did anything wrong on a regular basis, but everybody has made mistakes in execution at least once. It usually is not an issue, but one time, a cousin brought in a vegan dish that contained an allergen and did not warn anybody. It was more the lack of warning than the taste that was awful, but it was truly awful. Story 124. Luckily, it is only at Thanksgiving my grandma's pumpkin pie. My grandma has been gone for 17 years, and my mom still makes it every year. Nothing is wrong with the pie itself. I just hate pumpkin pie in general. It is a texture thing. However, I do not want to hurt my mom's feelings because I know having grandma's pie is important to her. So I always eat a piece or two. Yes, I silently gag the entire time, but seeing my mom's face when she sees all of us enjoying the pie makes it all worth it. Story 125. My sister's cooking is affected because she uses too many alternative ingredients like almond milk, low-fat, and low-sugar options. This makes dishes like macaroni and cheese really gross and way too sweet. She also once thought cheesecake would come out perfectly and kept cooking it until it was burnt. It was not good. Story 126. It was my aunt's lasagna. She never used ricotta cheese. Instead, she put cottage cheese between the layers, which made the sauce very watery and ruined the texture of the whole dish. Story 127. The only time I ever ate a bad meal was my poor grandmother's breakfast she made me when she had Alzheimer's. She had forgotten to cook properly, and I didn't eat much because the food was bad. I would take a bite and then throw some away when she wasn't looking. I figured she had made me a million amazing meals before. She got up and made me breakfast again. I could eat some of it, but the eggs were bad. Story 128. My sisters-in-law are family friends and have been for years. They make this authentic Italian pizza that tastes like Play-Doh topped with meat spaghetti sauce. I hate it, and they make it for almost every family event. I don't care if the family is from Italy. I refuse to believe that pizza is authentic. Story 129. My grandma used to always make cherry gelatin with walnuts, raw apple chunks with peel and celery. Story 130. My parents make a dish we've always called rice dish. It consists of rice, tomato sauce, a few spices, and is topped with cheese. It's essentially a baked spaghetti with rice instead of pasta. It's edible, but it is so dry that it tastes unpleasant. Story 131. I went to a Thanksgiving dinner at my cousin's in-laws when I was living with her for a few months. It was a city known for food, so I was really looking forward to it. We got to the house, and there was a big spread of food covering a table with people serving themselves. Buffet style. My excitement was cut very short when I realized all the food was cold. Their custom was to get the food ready early, then everyone would fix a plate and microwave it. It just didn't taste the same. I was very disappointed. Thank goodness that was a one-time thing. Story 132. Aunt Sue's fried rice is white rice with frozen vegetables. Peas, carrots, corn, and capsicum. There is no seasoning, no flavor, and it is not good. Should be thrown out. Twice a year I am forced to be polite and eat it. Story 133. Early in my dating my wife, to appease her mother, I had to endure bologna soup, a Newfoundland staple. I had gas so bad, I thought I was going to die. She, my mother-in-law, passed away more than 20 years ago. I miss her. Story 134. Chicken Diablo. I hate everything about it. To add to it, the dish is a bastardization of a really nice French dish. My aunt makes it and refuses to hear any criticisms, such as how the chicken breasts are always dry. The sauce is bland because you should use something better than American mustard, or how the dish is underspiced. My other least favorite dish is creamed corn. My family won't stop praising it and claiming my great-grandmother perfected the recipe. But all she perfected was making corn bland and soft. I don't understand why dilled green beans didn't replace it as the family dish brought to holiday meals. Story 135. I had a coworker who made cheese cookies for the holidays. She was very proud of them and was my partner in crime on the crime beat. So I made everyone try them even though they were dry and her combination of cheese and cookies seemed unusual. I also praised how delicious they were. I did myself a disservice because since everyone loved them, she made them year after year. Story 136. My mother was a terrible cook. She could and routinely did destroy pre-baked ham. Her pork chops were like shoe leather. The amount of steak she wasted was criminal. She rarely made chicken. Many chickens are thankful they did not die to be cooked by my mom. She did, however, make the best bread pudding. Story 137. My mom and her siblings love this concoction they jokingly call carpet pad, because it looks like that old green carpet pad. The ingredients are green gelatin, cottage cheese, chopped pecans, and diced pineapple. As a child, I was repulsed by it, and as an adult, I am still not a big fan, mostly for sensory and textural reasons, but to be honest, it does not taste as bad as it sounds. Story 138. My grandmother, may she rest in peace, was very proud of her holiday cornbread dressing. It was truly awful, sawdust dry, bland, salty, and with bits of liver too. The rest of her cooking was not much better. Story 139. How is this even a thing with adults? I refuse to eat something I do not like. If it is pointed out that I did not take a certain dish, I will say I do not care for it. I do not know why people get so offended when others have different tastes. Yes, it is disappointing that not everyone raves about something you made, but that is your pride getting in the way of understanding. Story 140. We always spend Christmas with my in-laws. Now, call me weird, but I have never really liked the traditional roast turkey Christmas dinner to begin with. I am just not a fan of the roast dinner at all, and the way they make it is a bit off. They cook everything on Christmas Eve. The turkey goes in the oven with, as far as I can tell, pretty much no seasoning for too long. Then, for what is supposed to be the most indulgent and luxurious meal of the year, everyone has to eat overcooked, reheated meat and overdone vegetables. I struggle to eat anything without gagging, and then I feel bad because they have made all that effort. My offers to help cook or to give them a break are always politely but firmly declined. They enjoy cooking Christmas dinner, you see. Story 141. Growing up, bean dip was always a holiday favorite in my family. My grandma probably made the best, but I didn't like beans at all. The texture felt strange to me, with very little flavor and unpleasant after effects. Now that I'm a mom, I make Southern-style ham for the holidays. My kids and husband don't eat it because they don't like pineapple. I still make it anyway because my mom always did, and it reminds me of her. I don't make them eat it, and I usually get a small ham. Story 142. My paternal grandmother made tomato aspic for every holiday meal. Unflavored gelatin, tomato juice, lima beans, celery, and green olives, in a ring mold. In the middle of the ring, mayonnaise to put on your slice of aspic. No one liked it except her, but we all had to eat 1 or 2 bites. All the rest of what she made was wonderful, but that tomato aspic was not popular. Story 143. Thanksgiving at my uncle's. Turkey cooked in pineapple juice, and my uncle insisted on putting oysters in the stuffing. Everything was unpleasant. Story 144. Any meal cooked by my ex-mother-in-law was never hot. She cooked vegetables to a mush, not deliberately, but she was incapable of doing it properly. It did not matter if there were 2 people or 10 to feed. She only ever made enough for 2. Again, not deliberate, just incapable. I used to sit at her table playing with a plate full of mushy broccoli and giving any meat and potatoes I was lucky enough to get to my starving son. Everyone had to pretend it was wonderful. I never spoke my mind, but I did not join in the chorus of praise. I think I may have been the only person in that family who did not fall in step with their passively toxic ways. Yet, because of those ways, they had to pretend to the world that they loved me. It was funny. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.